and then you slowly see them, and then one person says, I'm closing tomorrow, they said, so am I.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think
We
it's
should
a
have
good
the
way
clothes
to keep
tomorrow.
control we go.
It's supposed to
No.
start snowing at 3
Supposed to,
AM,
Yeah, 3 AM.
Yeah, we're supposed to get an inch an hour.
all the way through tomorrow.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
till
Yeah.
in the evening.
You know what? Yesterday, they said we weren't gonna get any snow up here, and it was gonna be all south. And then this morning, it
I
all
just
changed.
looked on my phone for Princeton and it was like 80%, 90%, 70%, all the way until like tomorrow night. Tomorrow dinner.
There's so many different models though, right? That they use, though, even though other guys use different models.
Yeah,
Different
the only thing I rely on is the National Weather Service is really good at, they kind of have a group, like of all superintendents and I think college presidents, and they probably like state and city officials and stuff where they kind of send like updates on their stuff. And I think they're the most reliable.
Problem is that the media.
Right.
And they
Yeah.
expect the worst, and tsunami. Snowami.
Rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let the roll call show that Eric Strandberg is not here, and our school board rep, Ellie Umberlau. We'll go into reports. We'll start with board member committee reports.
We had a policy board meeting today and pretty much recommended that all the items on the agenda be approved with maybe 2 changes. So yeah, basically, read and approve.
Just agenda planning.
I have nothing. I did not go to ski last Friday when it was rain and cold and whatever, so sorry, skip that. I will be gone the next one. And if in the upcoming meetings, we could add the ski legislative meeting on March 19th.
Policy committee meeting, and wanna just bring up, we had a change kind of, is a number of policies that affected people. They were shipped to teaching, learning, work to the high school, where they got to look at it first, and then worked on stuff dealing with transportation. So it was taken care of, and it came to us, it was done. That's the first thing, and then second thing, remember at the last meeting, came back from community, asked if we could get Ryan to come and explain the community ed program. And want to throw that out again, so he's invited to a work session. Do his spiel on all his programs, so what's going on. And I will be here on March 19th for the
So we'll move into superintendent report, and before we do that, I wish the paper was here, some other members of the community were here too. You just came back from California. Did a pretty amazing week out there, and for myself and the rest of the board, we would just like to say congratulations.
Thank you.
On a huge, I don't know if you call it a milestone, or it's a,
Well, yeah.
in your national certification for superintendent. Board, we got you a card, and then after the meeting, if you want to
Meet me out by my truck, I got something. I can't really bring it in, so,
Oh, thank you, thank you.
but congratulations.
Yeah, it was really, one of the coolest things I've ever done, you know, a couple of years ago, you just wanna try and get better, right, at what you're doing, and, you know, I never really, I have a lot of friends and colleagues at Suits that really were driven to get their PhD or doctorate, and I don't have a doctorate, and that really has never been a important thing to me, but I still wanted to learn and grow, and this was an opportunity to do that. And really, your training is real life and relevant, because you learn from other superintendents that are doing the same work as you. And I was in a cohort with about 20, and I sent you a picture of them, just kind of we were all kind of excited and goofy. That was from some of the most talented people, like one of the gals, she was in our cohort, was the Alaska Superintendent of the Year. And, you know, folks from Texas and Arizona and California and New York and Maine and, you know, just were, and it's funny because there's so many similarities to what we do. There's all kinds of, at the end of the day, there's so many different things. And then my teachers was the superintendent from San Francisco, and the superintendent from Seattle, and just some really big. This was my first, you know, real national exposure. And what's nice is that I feel like, you know, if we have issues and things that are happening here in Princeton, I can reach out to this group, and you know, they're going to get a bunch of support and, you know, documents. And you know, I've been really working a lot on just communication, like a communication plan in our district as it relates to how we communicate and how others communicate with us, and really get something established. And we're very close to unveiling that to you guys, but you know, I was able to get a lot of resources from out in Seattle, Washington, where they have a team of like 8 in their communications department, you know, so it's kind of neat to do that. So thank you for your support, and you know, I should thank, you know, Caledonia. They helped, you know, with the initial piece of that. So I want to thank you guys for doing that. So yeah, it's great. Other things, you know, we had a really good administrative PLC today, and we really started talking about our mission. We kind of broke that down, and the 2 words that we really got focused on is this whole word of every, you know, and innovative. And we started talking a little bit about, you know, are we doing this, and where are we in our continuum? And I think it really kind of opened our eyes, and this would be something that I would ask. We need to have more discussions as a board in terms of what do we think education should look like in Princeton, because in a lot of ways, right, school looks the same as it did probably when a lot of us went to school, right? But the world outside of the walls of our school has changed so much. And I think for the last several years, we were discussing a lot about like why we needed to change and trying to, you know, get people to see that way. I think people kind of realize that we need to change and evolve. But now the question is how? You know, what should we do? How do we make that happen? And I think that conversation is going to happen more and more with this high school redesign piece. I'm going to ask the board, and I'm kind of energized on that more than ever. And I'm going to, you know, ask you guys to be active participants when you come to some of those events. We're going to do more of those events. And, you know, this year is still the exploration phase, but then once we get through that, it's going to be lots of like movement, you know, lots of quick discussions, and that's where we're going to talk about, you know, policies and graduation requirements and, you know, a lot of things, because, you know, we're going to be talking about school-run businesses or student-run businesses, talk about more interdisciplinary approaches to education, you know, maybe required internships or you know, mentorships, maybe capstone capstone projects as seniors. Just trying to make what we do in high school more relevant to what's happening. I don't know what's gonna happen, but. I think there's some really probably- I don't know, I think I had a lot in my notes, and we're gonna talk about a lot tonight as well.
All right, move into approve the agenda. Seconded by Chad, seconded by Howard, any discussion?
Question, because normally we have the minutes of the last meeting on the agenda to approve, and we don't have the minutes. Why?
Yes.
It will have to be added to the minutes. We cannot add anything during live word performance.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Moving into the consent agenda. Motion. So made by Jim, for a second. By Chad, is there any discussion?
Thank you to the people giving their gifts to. Big read.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Moving into the work session, number 7, school makeup days.
Okay, let me start off by saying that, the governor had put out a communication that said that he was going to forgive all of the schools, in terms of those required hours of school. I did find out that isn't accurate, and he doesn't have the authority to do that, so we need to kind of have our discussion just knowing that. That might happen, but the legislature would have to make that decision. So I think he got caught up in being new on the job. Yeah, so I mean, and they probably will or what have you, but I mean, and honestly, it really isn't gonna make that big of a difference, and I guess I'm gonna defer to Jason to kind of share with you. I asked him to read the statute and kind of share with you. The statute says there's a required number of student contact days and hours, and we have scheduled in our calendar more than what the requirement is. So I'll just allow him to share where we're currently at.
Yeah, so basically the hours come down to mainly at the high school level. And so if typically our high school runs about 6.5 hours a day. So by statute, we would need about 156 days, school days. The other piece though that comes into play is there is a statute that does state that we have to have a minimum of 165 school days. So we're well within our realm right now, currently. We have 172 days on our school calendar from the beginning of the year till the end of the year. So we've already canceled school 4 times because of weather. Obviously, there could be other opportunities that this may come up. And as Ben said, those are tough decisions that you guys have to make. And in the end, we should be fine with our numbers of days as long as we have to have 165 student contact days. And right now, yeah, we would have 168 currently on our schedule.
So, I want him to share that with you, so you knew that, we're not required by law of any sense to add student contact. Now, that being said, contractually, our teachers, it does state clearly in there that, they would have to make that time up, right? And we have a couple ideas that I wanted to pitch to you. I did send it in an email today, just to you, paper. It's not an all-inclusive list, but if you've had other ideas, you certainly could in those. I share what I'm about to share with you. I shared with our admin team, and I did share with the 2 presidents today in our meeting confer. It's basically one option would be to just add days in June, right? that was our number one, goal was to not lose student contact days. We would have those in June. Right now, they're before, and it could potentially be more than 4. I believe that would be June 2nd would be that date. Because the way our calendar sits now, our last student contact date is actually May 30th. We don't go into June at all. I guess I would not recommend, messing, there's only 2 other days that we have off, prior to the end of the year, and that would be that Friday and Monday at Easter. I guess I just think that that would be very problematic for people to mess with that. I mean, it's really not much of a time over spring break. That's what we call spring break here. It's a Monday and a Friday, so I guess I wouldn't recommend that. So I think if we are gonna add days, I'd say we just have to bicycle. Now, that is not the option that I'm gonna promote and advise, but of course, you're the board, so you make the final decision. I would like to, really get aggressively moving forward in trying to get flexible e-learning days going in our school. Now, in a perfect world, I would love to, run it through a established district leadership team of staff, get that sent out to the teachers, get lots of feedback back and forth, and then make a decision or recommendation to you, and we would have that all decided and prepared prior to December. Mostly because I wasn't able to pull that off prior to now. I kind of had it in my brain that I wanted to bring this to you, because I hadn't done this in a previous district. So, I'd like to, we have 4 days right now that we have for contracted teacher time. I'd like to maybe look at an option to say, okay, well, let's take one of those days. We'll say, teachers, that's 8 hours, and you can use that on your own time to plan and prepare for a flexible e-learning. It's kind of like lesson plan, unit plans for when this would happen, right? We did talk about the option where we could run a kind of a trial day of a flexible e-learning day, and that would be on either that Friday or Monday of Easter, or we wouldn't have to, but that would be an option. That would be kind of like a planned day that we would, and we count that as a student contact. And then we would use the 2 other remaining days as curriculum writing time in the summer for our team. The other option would be to just use the 1 day for the teachers to plan and prepare for the flexible learning, and then not do a pilot day, on that Easter Monday, Friday, and then the other days would just be curriculum writing in the summer. So it would not be a recommendation on bringing students back. It would be more of a recommendation of using the time for more teacher staff development and work time to do some other critical things in the district. Now, if I had a very favorable response on this idea of flexible e-learning day from our administration, I had a very favorable response from our 2 union presidents. I think mostly because they have constituents in Minnesota, across the state of Minnesota, and they're very aware that lots of other school districts have gone in this direction. And, I think it's more of a question of why haven't we done this yet? Is more of the questions that we're doing, especially since when we invested in all of the one-to-one devices. Now I think I kind of shared a little bit with you that I was thinking about you bringing this forward. If I don't feel like there's huge resistance here tonight, what I would do is I would get a communication out to all of our teachers, kind of explaining this concept, and then I would get a communication out to all of the parents explaining this concept. And at that point, what we would do after those communications went out is we would schedule times into the buildings, and we would give maybe half an hour, 45 minutes staff development to the teachers you know, what does this look like? What does this look like in a primary setting? What does this look like in a middle school, at a high school? And I should point out that actually a lot of our teachers are already doing this when they know that there's a snow day potentially, like when we have the polar vortex thing and they knew that there might not be school. Most of them were saying, okay, I want you to do X, Y, and Z, you know, tomorrow and the next day. So, you know, that's the direction I'd like to go. And I think, the other reason I think that the teachers are real favorable of this, quite honestly, is, that they're ready for it, and no other schools are doing it, and you know what, nobody wants to come back to it. I mean, especially our staff, I mean, they really don't. And, I mean, talk about motivation to say, yep, I'll do that. You know, and sometimes you gotta walk through doors that are open. Like, here's an open door to kind of move something through that might not get a lot of resistance because it's just timing. And, you know, maybe we should take that opportunity to kind of move it forward. I would say I would coin this in every communication as this is something that we would like to try as a pilot, and we will collect input and feedback to see if this would be a long-term solution. It wouldn't be like, this is what we're doing forever. My sense is that there will be bumps and some things will probably not work, you know, but we'll get all that information. My sense is people will want to do that, because once we implement that, this probably yearly discussion that we have to have will never be a discussion again, because it's a non-issue. The state actually passed some legislation last year, 2 years ago, allowing for this to happen because so many districts were doing that. And it had to do with, they wanted to ensure that these e-learning days can be counted as student contact days on what Jason referred to as the number of hours that you're in school. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. The problem is, we wouldn't actually implement this until we felt like we were ready. Like, we know that we have steps that we have to do. We have to communicate with our teachers, communicate with parents, then we have to kind of train our teachers, give them time in PLCs to do some prepping. We will ask our teachers to kind of practice it with their students when they have them in class, like, okay, folks, let's pretend that, you know, you're tomorrow's a snow day, what's gonna happen? And this is what's gonna happen. So, let's see, and you know, principals would get communications out, classroom teachers, we would ask them to connect with parents too. So as a district, we would provide a framework, and then we would let our building principals go. I will tell you this, and this is from lots of experience in implementing this already and getting feedback from other districts that have done this. You know, things that we've learned is, you know, you have to have flexible due dates because there will be some issues that come up. Some people will have internet connection issues. We're not gonna torch people for not having their assignment done the next day, right? We're gonna say, you know, all due dates for anything on an e-learning day would be 1 week after. We would say that, you know, teachers need to have all, you know, kind of lessons and assignments kind of posted by 10 a.m. So, you know, they would get some time, and then they would be open for kind of office hours from a certain amount of time, like 10 to 2 or something. It's not, and then the other piece that we're gonna say to our staff and our students is that we don't want. What we learned is when districts did this originally, every teacher would just like slam the kids with like tons of work, right? And it was almost unreasonable. Like, everyone would give them hours of work, and then the kids would actually have more work to do on an e-learning day than they would have on a regular. So we kind of gave the idea that, you know, each class, 20 to 25 minutes or so of actual, what you would consider real on-task work per class. every teacher's, PE teacher probably at the elementary school, they say you can go up, build a snowman for 20 minutes. Or, you got a cooking class, you might say, okay, I want you to, bake a dish, take a picture of it and send it in, stuff like that. Every.
Schwann's delivery.
Well, you gotta higher standards.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Me too.
Yeah, but it would just, it's gonna look, and this is where our teachers will be able to be real creative. This is the kind of stuff where they'll be out doing research on the internet, looking at interest for teachers and, getting ideas. And we also hope that this would bring about more innovation for our tech integrationists to work with our teachers to look for different solutions to connect. There will be some, Google Classroom, Google Hangouts, FaceTimes, different things. So anyways, that's kind of what we're thinking.
So my comment on that is, we would more than likely be talking about this even if we weren't looking.
Yeah.
This is something that we would want to.
Yep, I'm just saying the making up days really makes the argument.
Might be a good timing.
Yeah, I would promote this regardless.
So as of right now, as far as the student contact days, we still have like 2 more days, right? And the teacher's contract, are we under the threshold there? I mean, could we do nothing about right now, just do
No.
nothing?
Because the teacher contract is 184 days,
Okay,
of which they did not report those 4, so
okay,
we do
so
wanna,
we do have to.
we do need to hold them.
So far.
Yeah, well, and if we did wanna go down the e-learning, I mean, we still would have the time, there'll be curriculum work that will have to happen in the summer. The problem right now is that we don't have a curriculum documentation tool that we currently have in existence. So that's one of the pieces that I've really kind of charged the teaching and learning department to come up with something. But we're trying to get the committee set up and then run this through the committees, lots of steps, but the goal would be to have this really in place by the summer so that teachers can.
Okay, so set it up by the summer, what do we do then? I mean, talking about making up school days, so we're getting it for the teachers. If this isn't up and running by the summer, that doesn't solve the problem. Right?
I don't necessarily think we have to do anything now per se, like, right now, we don't have to make up any student contact. Okay, although I would prefer to not, make that completely public that we're not going to, because we may decide that we need to.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Okay, 2 things. One, make a day, you've only got the 2 days, you can't touch Good Friday. You can't touch that one. The Monday's been touched before. The other thing on it is, didn't the second trimester just end? And if we add days on the end, that's going to be the third trimester longer, which is going to do a little bit of tap dancing to fill in those days with, it's, which can be done. But if I'm understanding what you're saying is those 4 days is pulling staff maybe in for a training and then somehow within a time scheme, have them learn how to set up their e-learning days. And they can do that anytime during the summer, or do you want that done, like by June 15th,
Well,
arbitrarily?
I'm gonna tell you that I think it's possible that if we get moving on this, we could, as early as, what is it, like mid-March, if we had a big storm, we could say this, we're gonna do this as a pilot. We primed the pump, we communicated with parents, the teachers are prepared, we talked to the students. It's gonna be a snow day for them regardless, right? They're not coming to school, but we're gonna try this out, and that would be my hope, and it's like, we're not gonna do it unless we feel like we're ready. to do it. But I would like to go into this with the idea, Howard, that, you know what, we're gonna give you a day, kind of count that as credit for, and you're gonna work on this outside of school, I don't care when you do it, how you do it, but that's your day. And so that's where, you know, there won't be able to have an argument that says, you know, this is a lot of work, how are you gonna compensate me for planning for these days? Well, I did, this is your day.
So theoretically, sometime between now and the end of the school year, somebody could work 4 Saturdays when we went in together.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm
I wouldn't anticipate, just knowing what I know as a building principal and what we have, what teachers put on Google Classroom right now, that it would take more than, you know, 4 to 6 hours to prepare that. In fact, you could, you know, 20 minutes of work for a student, and I guess what would be timely would be the topics that you want students to cover, you know, and the kinds of things. And so, I mean, at the middle school, they post those things on a almost daily basis for kids and students that have all their Chromebooks. Chad, you probably know, they just pop those up and get going on, you know, whether it's at school or at home. You know, the elementary might have to do, because they don't have one-to-one, they might have to do some more of, here's a packet of things that, as a classroom teacher, I want you to do. I want you to work on, like Ben said, 20 minutes of math. Here's either a website or a packet, some problems that I want you to work on. This is what we're doing in class. So I might mention too that at our last admin meeting when Ben was gone, working really hard in California, we were back here, and Jody Burling, our district technology instructional person, along with Jessica, shared a very detailed document and some excellent examples that staff could look at. And I was pretty impressed. And then they asked us, and Ben asked me what I thought. And I said, I don't see why we couldn't have this in place and you know, within the next 4 to 6 weeks, or even before that. But you know, I hate to speak from my position.
The tricky thing, people will think this is like a big deal, but really it's not. It's a teacher, if you got your classroom teacher and you said to your kids today, you have them in class, okay kids, we're not gonna have class tomorrow. Hey, take out your computer, I want you to watch this YouTube video, let's do a group discussion on the discussion board, and and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Press send and it goes right to the teacher.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, we had, I was following a few of our elementary teachers on Twitter, and one of them at our last snow day had something written on the whiteboard. If we have a snow day tomorrow, and it had all these things, she took a picture of it and she sent it out on Twitter, and I think all the parents must follow her on Twitter and said, hey, this is what the kids got to do tomorrow. You know,
Practice math a little bit. I saw it too.
yeah.
Read this for a little bit.
Read this for 45 minutes, you know, write a reflection, you work on your math facts.
So if we would make a motion to accept your proposal, okay, what would be the first step? You'd contact the administrative team, and then they'd contact the teachers and set up a workshop and.
Well, yeah, I mean, my next step would be a written communication of the staff, just explaining this. And then building principals would follow up with them almost immediately. And then I would get a communication out to parents, just kind of explaining this concept. And again, I would say that we'd like to do this as a pilot, as a trial. And then we would set up some, just really like a half an hour or 45 minutes, whether it be the teaching and learning department going to each site to talk to the teachers, just say, here's a bunch of examples that we found from other districts, or they might just do they could do a video and send that out. We have this new thing that's kind of cool, I should have mentioned it, called PD on demand, the teaching and learning, creating like, professional learning, professional development hosted in a virtual environment for our teachers, which is really cool, and I think they've been real excited about that.
Yeah, and then they would do it independently, so.
So I would make a motion to accept your proposal as a pilot program and to see how it works and go with the e-learning as you described.
So this is a work session.
All right,
So you can withdraw your motion.
I
and
will,
just recommend.
I did.
Yeah, and I think that's really, that's all I'm looking for is just like, if you had any, if you all said, heck no, we need this idea, I don't want to do it. And who knows, maybe I'm over optimistic. There could be a big group that says, we're resistant here, but I just haven't, we don't think that's gonna happen, and it's mostly because, again, people only come back to school in June. And I think other people realize that, everybody at their work is doing virtual webinars and stuff, and people are taking online classes. And I think it's almost like, why haven't we done that yet, especially if we've spent so much money on the Chromebooks?
I think your biggest, I think that, just by the looks of the people are talking, you have support here, but I think your biggest, hurdle will be maybe some of those parents that really don't really get into the technology part of it yet. So I think if you have a good communication, because it sounds like you're coming up with that, if you have a good communication that goes out to all those parents, that they can understand it thoroughly, on what it looks like and what's going to look like, they'll be successful.
I think there's also, there are families that are communicating with other families for school districts. So I've had families say to me, well, why aren't we doing this? My cousins' kids are, we're not worried about it at all. They just, we
And
just
it's
do it.
nothing new for the kids.
No.
The kids are used to it. They do it every hour.
And Google Classroom is like basic, all levels of our school, and that's just an easy vehicle.
And all the teachers have been trained on it, through the boot
Exactly.
camps.
I don't see it.
I think,
Big issue.
yeah, I will prepare you, there will be some critics, there will be some groups that, I'll tell you one group that I gotta figure out how to reach is, I know our daycare providers, right? What happens if you have an elementary child that, and you don't have school, well, I'm gonna call and send you to daycare, now all of a sudden, the kids have the work they gotta do, how's a daycare provider, I don't think they're gonna be opposed to it, but I think I wanna communicate with them like, hey, this is coming versus them this.
Or they might be happy, they'll have.
We don't have something to
Do.
do.
Get over here in this corner.
Yeah,
Start
yeah,
working.
working it on.
I like the option where the title is one of those two days because it's for it that, versus the be where if we get an opportunity.
Yeah, I would say that I like that B too, but the only thing I'm a little bit worried about is, let's say we're all ready to go and we have a huge snowstorm in March. I would wanna do it.
Right, okay.
So then it's,
Take Easter Monday.
yeah, I would wanna do it right away. So then it would be like, well, then if I did it that way, I wouldn't really need to do this trial day. So I would say that if we don't get hammered and we haven't done it yet, then that might be an easy way for us to say, we're gonna try this. The other place that I see us using it would be probably like at places like the high school, like sometimes. High schools, like on testing days, like if they're, their 9th and 10th graders are doing state tests and the juniors and seniors don't have to come in that day, or maybe they come in at noon or what, there's things like that happen. They could say, okay, not like you just get the day off, you know, juniors or seniors, this can be e-learning day for you.
Now, the teachers would work from their homes during these days. Is
Yes,
that what your
yep.
plan would be?
Oh, yeah, this whole, teachers will be sitting on their couch in their pajamas, probably doing their
So,
work.
like the contract where they have to be at school or that's.
No, they don't have to be at school. If they wanna come into school, they can, but that's not an expectation. I would say that that's gonna be probably something we need to anticipate through this, is that we'll have some teachers that will have connection issues. You know, so I guess that's why we do a pilot, so we'll figure out how we're gonna iron that out.
Do we have I remember we talked previously, do we have a number of how many of those devices we have and then versus what? Just with, find out what we need,
Yeah.
just because we already have, I don't know what that number is.
What'd you
So
say?
those pilot, the hotspots.
Hotspots.
Yeah, I think we
I
have
think
like,
we have about 10 in our school,
so
maybe a
it's
dozen.
about 10 per school.
Yeah.
Ish,
You probably need more if you
right.
might want to invest in a few more. You know, and the other thing, I don't know if Ben mentioned this too, but in Jody's plan was, and Ben's plan, or this whole plan, I should say, is that, you know, some kids aren't gonna have connectivity, or something's not gonna work right away, so teachers will automatically extend their due date to maybe out like a week or so, or so on and so forth. Did you mention that, Ben? Okay, so that would be helpful for families, and that kind of eases some of the pressure off parents that maybe don't have connectivity, or kids that go to daycare or whatever. Yeah, yeah. So I thought that was a really good idea.
Yeah, so, you know, I think we're trying to see what happens. I mean, in everything that we're working on is, we're benefiting from a bunch of other school districts doing this the last few years and learning from their mistakes, and we're just that's what we're going with. Yeah, so I don't need I don't think any kind of formal action. The board just fully understands that we can do school anywhere, anytime, any place, right? I mean, learning can happen in different places. Thank you.
High school calendar.
Yeah,
Calendars there.
yep, this is not next year, this is the year after, just because I always have 1 year ahead of time. Basically, that first traditional calendar is taking all light dates and, that we've had this year and move them forward onto that calendar. You'll notice a late start is the 7th. I do think, I don't know, I'm not asking you to vote on this tonight. So there could be some changes in the future, because I'm almost positive that the legislature will actually take up every year that whole issue of starting before Labor Day comes up. And it never passes and it never goes anywhere, and it probably won't, but there is gonna be like a specific to that particular year, because Labor Day is so late. And there may be some movement there, I'm not sure, because I think people would prefer to start at the September 1st versus September. So if that could change, just want you to be aware of that. I did throw a calendar in there with a spring break option, just for discussion purposes. You know, my sense would be if we ever went to a spring break, that year might not be the best year to do it, just because we're starting so late. Well, it's gonna push us.
Didn't we, and Deb will know, between the last time we did calendar. We break out for it. Get out after.
With a higher, yeah, they wanted dash, more than they wanted this.
Well, and because this is a work session, I wanted to get this in front of you if you would like. It's completely up to you. If you want input from our stakeholders, we can throw both these up. Or if you wanted us to create a third one or whatever and send that out to people and say, what is your favorite, A, B, or C?
When was that? Maybe we should- that was- that's-
That was
No,
2 years
because
ago.
mine was my first year.
Oh, was it?
Right, yeah, I was gonna say it was really recent, so I'm good with what. About that spring break, I think.
Yeah, I think most of the parents would.
I think you're gonna, they're not gonna wanna go till the ninth.
No,
I can tell you that right now.
that's right.
And regardless if we have that spring break in there, just like we have our winter break, people who have planned things are gone anyway, and doing, it just, if the question I have, and I don't remember what it was, but that year we changed the calendar 3 times and got into issues, that there was something in somebody's contract. We were in school, but we couldn't be, because one of the bargaining groups could not work the day before a holiday, so like.
Custodians, January 2nd, wasn't it? January
I
2nd.
thought it was food service.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a couple of our contracts that do have some specific dates that we.
And you
Wanna
watched
work
that
through,
when you did
yes.
these, okay, because that turned into an issue with a couple of staff that had plans and then the calendar got changed and whatever, and it was not.
Well, here's what I'll probably do if we wanna go with the traditional calendar, is I would like to send that out to all of our team, our teachers, and say, okay, this is what we're kind of thinking. Please send feedback on more of the minor things, like do we wanna have the day off on a 2-day week that week or a 3-day week that week? We wanna have, there might be some small modifications if there's some good reasons. So, but, you know, I would,
I guess what you're hearing here is a long spring break is kind of a non-starter, because most people didn't want it, and we don't care for it, and everyone wants to be out, you know, and I would like to start before Labor Day, but from my teaching experience here in our community has changed. When we started before Labor Day, we really never had a good head count. We had kids at the state fair, we had people on their last vacation, you had, a lot of things going on that your attendance was extremely volatile, because you never knew who was around. Stuff before Labor Day, or just you could, have those days covered.
well, I would say that if the legislature changes, then I bring it back to the table if you guys wanna do something different. I think for now, what I'll do is I'll just, use this more of a traditional approach. I'll get this out back in front of the admin, and we'll get some feedback from other folks. And, you know, we'll massage it a little bit if there's any massaging that needs to happen, and then we'll, you know, when we feel like we're ready, we'll bring it to you guys. So, formally vote on it.
That's not next year, it's following.
Yeah, and just so this group knows, you know, the board approved next year's calendar last year. And our admin team has spent some time like going through to what, like when conferences are gonna be. And because when you approve the calendar, typically we don't have the conference dates and everything set in right away. So that work for next year is actually happening.
So being the last cycle, we approved 2 years, this you only have 1. Do we want to extend it? We have 2 years cycle. I think, I don't remember why we did a 2-year cycle. That was one of the first or second times we did it. So,
Also, you're saying that,
You do 2 years at a time, you plan 2 years at a time.
so approving a calendar for 2021, we've also. approved
So the calendar that's for next year was actually approved 3 years ago? 2 years ago? That, I mean,
We had several calendars at one point, it seemed like.
Yeah, but we've been approving 2 years at a crack.
2 calendars,
Yeah.
1 year, in 1.
Yeah.
You know
See,
what
like
the
the
reason
end.
was?
Planning and smoothness and I have no idea what the rationale was.
So,
it
so
was-
with that concept, I probably wouldn't even brought this calendar's discussion to you. So I'd wait till next year, and then we would do 2 years. And now, I guess basically what I did is I brought it to you this year, so we're always,
Either way.
always trying to
either
stay
way, we're
1
always
year out.
ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
Either way, we're always.
it's just, my question was just, we normally did 2 years instead of 1.
I like this, that's good.
I like the calendar being there with enough time that people can plan around it and do, snow days.
I'm very comfortable with us just, trying to bring a calendar to you every year, but it would always be for that 2 years out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good with it.
Sue had brought this up. She went to a probably very informative session at MSBA, and we just wanted to hear some of her thoughts and any enhancements that we could make for our students.
Well, I think that, the reason it's an interest to me, and it has been since I got on, was, last year and the year before, she sat next to me, and she would give her report, and then she would do her homework. And that's because it's not meaningful to them. So that it just piqued my interest, if we're gonna have one, it should be meaningful to them. It's just sitting here doesn't feel good to me. So, so I went, they had two, it was a panel, and they had 2 kids, one that, did a 1-year term, and it was either through their student government, or it was just from the student body at large, how they were, voted, and the other one was a 2-year term, and they had, so the junior, they shadowed, so they came in and to the board meetings and watched, and then the second year, they were the actual representative, so it was a 2-year thing. And then they just shared, their experiences. At a business meeting, they would give their report, and then they would leave. And then on a workshop, they would sit at the table, and then they would participate in the discussion. So an example would be the school calendar, they would have had an opportunity to participate. And they also, both of them, different from Ally, who just comes in and for the most part just does a little student council blurb, they would report on more things. So like current achievements, not like basketball game scores, that things that we could look up ourselves, but maybe achievements, or every meeting they would highlight a different group or activity. I know, I think Howard asked, like, well, what is that group? So that representative would reach out more middle school and high school of things that are going on. History Day would have been an example, things like that. Special happenings, things about school environment or needs that they have. MSBA recommends an orientation, and to my knowledge, we've never done that. Like, I'm not sure they really know what they're supposed to do here.
The actual phase 1 and phase 2, that same.
Yeah, and MSBA said they're welcome to go to those things. We can't pay them, but we could take them, someone would go with them. Or an experienced board member could set up an orientation, the superintendent and Jason or whatever, like an orientation itself. They also recommend a board member mentor, so that person has, like the mentor would connect with them before the board meeting and ask, you have any questions, is there anything you can help with, that kind of thing. And some schools also have their member participate in board committee, like, for us, like long-range planning, where they would give us student voice in that, world's best workforce, whatever would be appropriate. They do and can add agenda items if they go through the process like everyone else would. So, I just like to see, I didn't reply to you, I don't know if they, within student council, if there's a job description, like within their bylaws or anything, or, if it's like a little separate committee that works together with Andrea, or that you work with, I don't know how, if we were to proceed, but I think it's the coolest thing, but I think it's sad that they really, doesn't.
Voice.
Well, and I think I think all of us at the table are welcome to hear what they have to say, but if I was there, I wouldn't say anything. 'Cause and the business stuff, you know, the finance and things, they don't understand a good portion of that, so, and we're not seeking that either from them, so I just like to see it be more meaningful for everybody. You have that, liaison with the student council now, I mean, so you get some of that, but we don't.
Well, yeah, that's one of my favorite things I get to do. I established a student advisory group to the superintendent. And, I don't know, there's like 15, 20 of them, and, really get a lot of good perspective from them. I feel bad that I haven't sat down with this, because I think that when you take part, like that, kind of help them understand all of the function. It's my sense when they speak up, people listen, because you really do want to hear their perspective. You know, I don't know, I mean, it really, we absolutely want their input, I think, in terms of like how much authority, you guys are all elected officials, right? You know, they're not.
Right.
So,
Just that fine line between that.
Right.
And
Well,
vote.
and in a way, they're.
They don't vote, but they don't discuss.
right.
When we first started getting the student council, we actually worked in the bulk and the order, we had 3 or 4 of them because they were coming. And I think Elliot, now she's been gone twice, and Lakeview was ahead of her, were the most consistent ones who showed up the most. And, so we probably, as a board, dropped the ball between who was showing up, if they'd show up. It was, you know, a thing that all of a sudden occurred. And I don't even remember, I know now they go through a process to be through it, but prior to that, I think it was, well, you go, oh, I can be a leader do that long. So, mentoring thing works very well. I find out that there's student council members on your advisory group.
Yeah, they are, some of them. I would say there's 2 easy things we can do based upon what you said. One is we can do an orientation, with them, and it would be, if we did have a board member that wanted to serve as like a mentor for that person, and as for that matter, you know, well, Jim and I learned at our MSBA, phase 1, how common it was for when new school board members get onto a board, where the board will assign an experienced board member to be that new board member's mentor. Yeah, so I mean, that could be up for discussion the next time we get a new school board member, but, you know, if somebody wanted to be a mentor, and what would that look like? We can certainly consider that too. And I think that maybe just having some conversations with the person, like how much we value them, how important their role is, that might help them.
Well, they don't even, organization is on either one. I think they come in here completely unprepared.
So maybe creating some expectations or some guidelines or, you know, some. Yeah, kind of like that.
Just like even just a job
Yeah.
description. To make it,
Feel meaningful.
yeah.
And at least have some kind of direction.
And we have middle school student council too, but you know, it's might be a little bit more challenging for them, they don't have wheels.
With all the resources that MSBA has, do they have such a thing as a school board job description?
For students.
Well, I was even talking for a regular school board member, and I don't know that I've
Well, we
seen
have
a lot
a
of
policy that kind of lists your duties and
I know there's a policy, I don't know if there's a state one.
Let me throw something out. What if there was a little bit of compensation for the school,
Can't.
for the student council?
We can.
Can't do that.
No.
Because like when we have people working on software stuff, I thought the students were getting some. Okay,
We do pay students for, we do have students on our payroll for several things. But you're saying like, but there's something that says school board.
It just, MSBA thinks student representatives should not receive.
okay.
Well, okay, I've written down, meet with the student school board members to do an orientation. I have a job description. Job description might be just very simple. And it's not like, gonna be super complex. We might have 5 to 10 bullet points. This is it.
And I think should be a good do at the break before you do the report, just safety workshop.
Yeah, and I don't know how you feel about that. If, I've stayed for the meeting as a learning experience, I don't know, but they always talk about being sensitive to their needs, homework, and I don't think they have on the meetings too, but.
No, I agree. I think that would be 2 meetings a month. I mean,
Well, the workshop is where they can, give the.
Really get them
more
out.
discussion and.
I think you'd ask
A lot more.
them directly, what is your view on your, what do you think your role is? Start with there, and either completely off or on track.
Don't they already have like we kind of did a description of what they thought and
I don't know, when it started, even the prior school, school council advisor had no idea what we were supposed to do. And if I remember correctly, it was, we were gonna reach out to the board to get a student council rep. And then we got one, and I guess nobody knew how to handle it, truthfully honest.
It was required at one time.
Until we played.
the one thing I have been impressed with how the high school operates with how they do have a very high functioning student council. Very formal, very professional, they have all these committees. And they do have kind of a component on like, how to bring issues to administration. Where like Barb and I think Darren, like so I would imagine most like burning issues to them wouldn't ever really even get to this, having to share with us because they're able to be resolved at a building level because those administrators have given them that voice and that to express concerns. But- Okay, so I got job description, meet with the board, student board member, express to them how important they are. I will express to them that, hey, if you come to 2 meetings, we don't expect you to stay the whole time for, number one, we like you to stay the whole time for the discussion, for the work session. And they probably don't even understand the difference. And we'll go with that.
Move on to the revised budget.
All right. If we bring up the first page, it's the overview of all our funds, the general fund and the main fund. Overall, our budget is looking better than it did in June, in the summer when it was warm, no snow on the ground. No polar vortex. On the bright side, the numbers have come down, we're at about overall a negative 1.1 instead of a negative 1.4, closer to 1.5 probably. Large part of that has to do with enrollment. We were very conservative on what we put in for enrollment, and we maintained that enrollment from last year into this year, so we were, that gives you a nice positive number on the unassigned side. We'll look at Fund 1 in more detail on the second page. Food service is, at the same point as the original budget, not much change there. No, it looks like a big negative, but typically we come in better than, what we are projecting based on student participation in the program. Community education is looking good, there's a slight negative there, so basically a flat amount. That slight negative is coming from Pathway One scholarships. When we did the original budget, we anticipated about the same number of scholarships for preschoolers, but they are not giving us at quite the same rate, so there's a few dollars less there that would put us in the negative. We are currently budgeting now for the or the long-term facility maintenance. Yeah, I'm going back a few years in my life, aren't I? The LTFM fund, it won't be exactly 4.5 million, but we have plugged this in, and it will not all be in this current year that we will be expending it, so there will be some changes for next year based on what we spend this year in this fiscal year. But that will be spread over the next couple fiscal years spending. Debt service, of course, no changes there, as that's our house payment. Fund balances are listed below. We are in good shape as far as final fund balances, as you recall from our end of year audit. But if you go to the second page, this is the most interesting page because it has the breakout of all the restricted and assigned. Our restricteds are pretty much relatively the same as the original budget. We do not do too many changes to that. The one caveat to that is, in most cases, we've slightly reduced our variance in each of the categories because of enrollment change. When the enrollment goes up, it not only affects the unassigned, but it affects all the restricted, because enrollment is somewhere in the formula. So the more enrollment you have, the more revenue you receive in each of the categories. Q-Comp and staff development are based on the plans. You'll see that we are planning to spend a little bit more into staff development. We have a large fund balance for that area in staff development that's showing, let's see, it's listed at $263,000. So we are going to work on spending some of that down and getting our teachers more staff development that's relative to their areas. Q-Comp has not changed. Technology assigned did not change from the original. Building improved. That was the 2 classrooms that we added on to the elementary, and we'll have some money left, I believe, at the end of this year, because I don't think we'll end up doing the well for the the middle school that Ben has sent a letter over to Public Utilities. I don't think we've heard a response, but we've kind of held on to that money, not knowing what that might entail. So there might be a little bit left there. Program initiatives, that's our math curriculum that we purchased, plus we added 1 more grade. It's great. So that's basically all that's in that program initiative account. We do have a fund balance there of just short of 650,000. The activity account assigned, of course, has not changed. The unassigned has changed quite a bit. It was slightly over $1 million when we started with our adopted budget. Remember, we do not zero-based budget here because of our fund balance. But once we added the enrollment analysis into this, it dropped us down to 651. We also were in a good position with special ed, so we were able to add some dollars there. We did add a counseling position at the high school. That was probably our biggest add. We've had some special education pieces. We had to add in, we didn't need, it wasn't that it added to the budget, but like an interpreter was needed at special ed. So we've had some small things come on, but not huge adds in staffing. Building budgets all stay original. Looking at, we go through and review all of the utilities and we review all of the big categories to make sure that they're running and tweak them, but not major changes in any of them. So do you have any questions? Our unassigned fund balance right now is at the bottom of the list. It is 5.5 million. We are well above our 10% currently. We're about 15% of our fund balance. And we must maintain a minimum of 10%, so there's no issue there. Any questions? That's the excitement of the world.
It's not exciting.
It is, it's really good, and it's really good that it went the right direction.
Jeff, you wanna go right in the parameters for
I will then. All right, parameters. The big piece of the job of the Board of Education is to set parameters for budgeting for the next year. We have looked at this in this January workshop. Did we talk about this? I believe so. We have discussed it now twice at finance, and some may be getting very tired of looking at it, but this way we're tired of looking at it and we can make a decision. So the very first document we have on here is resident students choosing to go elsewhere. Now, if you recall, this is one of the things when Julie and I both started, we wanted to reduce this number. As you can see, we have really not succeeded. We thought in 16, when we held it year 2015 and 16, that we were heading the right direction, but then we popped right back up. So we will continue to work on that and see if we can get us turned around. We may not be able to. So we have a large number of students that are choosing to go elsewhere, most of them in the Elk River School District. Most of them Zimmerman. So,
Does that include, like, yes, no, or?
this is just open enrollment.
So how are we I mean, it's good to see these numbers, but they would need more if they had, at least even if it was we think they're going. I don't know, we don't see
We did
that.
surveys originally. Most parents do not fill them out. They just say school of choice and it doesn't tell us.
We get information from Mars on like what district our kids are in, so that I think is what Chad's asking, right?
Yeah, just,
How many kids go to Elk River? How many
Yeah,
go to
right.
Waaka, How many go online?
right, exactly.
Yeah.
What are the reasons, right? I mean, 'cause here it's just numbers.
Well, I would only have the numbers of who's going.
We can get the board numbers of the number of students that are leaving our district and what district they're actually going to. And we can get the opposite of how many, students were in other districts.
They don't give you the reasons why. they're
Right.
going to, Yeah.
But just to see, because then we can kind of put our own.
Well, I guess this question is coming up, it's, our resident population. How many of those students who are, quote, now our resident population never attended school here? They attended Elk River Zimmerman. They built a new house this way, but they stayed there. So, it sounds like we're losing them to migration, but we may never have them to begin with.
so hard that you'd have to really dissect that data, and I'm not sure if it's possible.
Yeah.
There's a few things that
Especially.
we need to do. I think we're gonna turn this around. Confident. And it sounds like the previous superintendent was too, but we'll see if we can change some things that I know that we can do that might make a big difference. Is we have to have a more robust, kindergarten roundup. That's what they called it back where I grew up. Is we're letting ourselves get beat to the punch, from Elk River School District and getting stuff out, getting signed up for kindergarten. They're about a month or two ahead of us. And, I think they do a lot better job of promoting it and getting that word out, right? That's an area right now that, we really need to improve on, is what we're doing is not, I would say, best practice. Gotta do better there. You know, we need to continue to get our act in order and our house in order and do good things around here. And the other piece is, you know, the more I'm in this job, the more I see the power of the marketing and the PR and, you know, reputation management, telling our story in a positive. I mean, we just need to, we've been trying to get better, we have to get a little better, but there's way more that we need to do to tell our story and get word out. So those are a few things, and, you know, again, also, you know, trying to enhance our programming, be innovative. We have some things started, that we, and hopefully, you know, the other things we'll redesign our academy. Yeah, it's disappointing.
But I like the next page much better. So those choosing to come to us, from when I started here, is now about 100 students more. We were at 122, and now we are at 227. So those choosing to opt into Princeton Public Schools has increased and has offset some of those choosing to leave. So that's just an informational piece. And then our first analysis is basically looking at end of September to the end of the year, what happens. And the first one is called Analysis A, and I think we have them in there.
Here's this one.
Yep, let me see if I can make mine bigger, because I'm blind. Is looking at,
I don't see an analysis A in there. I mean,
Here we go.
it's
down.
right
Keep
below,
scrolling
just
down.
keep sliding
on the
down.
same page.
It's on the same one.
Right there.
Yeah, I need
Oh.
to read it.
That says analysis B then.
You didn't find it? It's part of the
Mine
resident,
says B, but
no, resident document. Go back to the previous one and slide. The third page. Mhm.
If I can find it, you can find it.
gotcha. Sorry, it was just,
So that,
on that long one we're just on, but
So
even
push
further
there.
down.
Yeah.
Howard feels good right now. So this is traditionally what we have done for the last 4 or 5 years, is we look at what our October 1 enrollment is. So basically who's sitting here September 30th. And, what might happen to get us to the end of the year. And we look at the average variance, the lowest variance, so most leaving us somewhere between September and May, and then the median. Typically, we have taken the lowest variance, so that's that middle one under 2018-19 in the weight. With the high school, in 2016-17, I shouldn't say high school grades 9 through 12 because it's all programming 9 through 12. Between that October 1 date to the end of May when we graduate, we lost just of 70 students that year in the worst case scenario. The other buildings are relatively stable and or they grow. So when we, right now, the revised budget has it at 3,300 students. That's where we have typically looked at, and so now the next sheet that I want you to bring up is the next, it says 2019 district enrollment. So one of the things that we wanna do is look at how the enrollment is comparing overall and what our average is looking at currently. So the average at our primary is 726, our intermediate is 738. Our middle school right now is at 801. A month ago, it was at 803. That is the building I'm gonna highlight right now is the middle school. Typically, we have seen the middle school grow either at a slight rate, stayed stable, or they've gained more than anticipated. That is not what we are seeing right now at the middle school. We are seeing a reduction in students. And we did ask the question, we called that the data of the kids for 1 month. We had 8 that totally left the area, they moved away, totally physically moved away. We have some extra care and treatment kids that they'll filter in and out, so we'll get partial credit for them. Some things that, you know, we really can't control is happening. So. And then, of course, 9 through 12 programming. At the end of January, we are showing that there's 1,017, and the month before we were at 1,080. Now they are telling me that they pulled out early grad, but I don't think early grad graduates until March, right? March. And typically we see that at the end of March. So assuming that we stay relatively stable now that the early grads, as I understand it, are out. Yes, it is.
Typically that's on March 6th.
Yes, but we usually report it at the end of March because they're here till the end of March usually. So I don't know if we had early grads in January or not. In the second. In the first.
Second try is over March 6th. That would be, I think, one day.
And it started in December, right?
Yep.
So we should get credit for those early through March. So, Emily.
Make sure they're still in Mars.
I will make sure that we figure that out because that's a big deal. So then if you go to the next sheet, analysis B, which looks like analysis A. What we changed on this was the middle school. We hard keyed in 803 for the average of where we were at the time. And that changes our projections. Because if we would have added a few more students in analysis A versus analysis B. And actually like I said, we put in the revised budget 3,300 students. Well, if you look at our lowest variance, that total end of year numbers coming out at 3,296 students. So we were 4 off, so we left it at home. You know, we could have more students easily at the end of the year because our average variance is showing that we would be 20 students higher than 3,300. And our median variance is 25 students. So there's a possibility that we could have more, but we're usually very cautious on the revised budget. Because we have seen them not be there at the end of the year. So this starts our discussion for what's going to happen next year. And there should be an enrollment table, which I call it the school finance table. And they put in our October 1 numbers, and they have this multiple tab spreadsheet that does all these wonderful things, and it kicks out what might happen. So in 18-19, they are predicting that we will be about 3,315 students, so 15 students higher than what we currently have in the revised budget. They are projecting that enrollment in 19-20 will be flat, basically, and in 2020-21, slightly under flat. So the projections from when we talked about this in January have changed slightly with the changes we have to take into consideration that drop in those school levels, so. That change doesn't show us growing quite as fast, and it wasn't a huge enrollment growth that we were seeing, but it was, little bits, which is helpful. At this point, we're showing basically. So what we are gonna need from you next time, and we can talk about this, you can ask questions now, is where do you think enrollment is gonna land? Should we plan for flat enrollment? Should we plan for 20 extra students? Because that drives your revenue. I'm cautious, I'm going to take the goal of we plan for flat. That would be my recommendation, because it's a safe recommendation. I cannot guarantee that these bodies will walk in the door. Or come to us virtually. They're not all physically walking in the door anymore.
Yeah, it just really depends on how conservative the board wants to be. When we don't have very much of a fund balance, then I would say you would be very conservative. When you have a little bit of a fund balance, then if you care, you're not going to grow. Michelle's just like any great CFO, business manager, they're all gonna be conservative and give that recommendation, and that's what, I think you should do. It really depends if the board, wants to be a little less conservative. And when we're doing these parameters, when you're estimating, what the state's gonna give you, and what we're gonna do for negotiation, what our student enrollment is, if we take every single one of those parameters and if we go conservative, the most conservative on all of those areas, we could put ourselves in a projection where we got to go up. So it's like we gotta be a little bit. So, I don't know. There's another way we could do it is, we could say, hey, let's move forward with this, Michelle's, kind of guidance and suggestions is to go conservative and not have, project for any growth in enrollment. And that's kind of our starting point, and we could see, where that gets us.
One of the big pieces is K. It's not knowing that K number, and right now, we know we have less students to choose from. So will we garner more of those kids that you know, are going to Elk Rivers in the area. Then we reduce that amount to keep them here. And I don't know if we're in a position this year to do that yet.
Well, you're recommending that they be conservative, is there another option? Cause it kinda sounds like you would like to be a little bit more aggressive than that, or? I mean, is there a number that we should be looking at as far as the number of students or percentage?
Well, actually, Michelle and I were gonna sit down tomorrow and I think you ran some simulations on, and what you're gonna present to me tomorrow, you put some hypothetical parameters in there. What did you use for parameters?
Flat enrollment,
Flat enrollment,
1.5% on the state funding,
1.5 from the state. You do anything for
increase for sped,
an increase in terms of expenses for sped?
no, revenue.
Okay, revenue. And then, what did you do on the teacher negotiation?
I don't know. Okay.
Of 1 in 100.
Good answer.
I gotcha. So basically with kind of what she ran for a simulation, although we haven't done a deep dive, it's kind of looking like, we're in a position to be pretty much maintain what we have. And as you know, I've met with every department head and principal, you know, and say, hey, what are your needs? What are the different needs? Of course, we got pages of needs. So, you know, it just, if we go with what's being recommended here, it would be, we're just gonna maintain with pretty much what we have, with the idea that if, you know, once the legislature is done, you know, when is that, March, April?
Unfortunately, May 20.
May, okay.
And the governor this time is saying we are not gonna close down, we are going to be done on.
Yeah. Well, and if you've seen
They all
his,
say that.
if you've seen his projection for what he put out 3%, you know, who knows if we'll do that, but, let's just say hypothetically, it was 3%. Well, what did you say, every 1% is about 400,000 for us? So let's just say, we say, well, let's go with this conservative, you know, this budget here, we're not gonna be adding anything now, but let's say it gets to May and say, oh geez, we got $400,000 or $500,000. Let's say if it's 1.5, because we have 1.5 in the projection, and if it's 3, that would be a 1.5. That'd be 600,000. We say, okay, well, let's take a look at our list of needs and priorities, and maybe we could add some things late in the game, being very conscious of the fact that that needs to be sustainable over time, right? So we don't add something that we have to turn around and cut the next year. But, you know, we could go that direction, and I would be comfortable with that. You know, but again, I haven't, her and I are meeting on this tomorrow, so I haven't seen the simulation. That's the tricky.
Yeah, and we'll be discussing the simulation down the road with the whole board.
Mhm.
And they can, at that point, change anything that they vote on in March.
Yeah.
At our March meeting. But let's talk about state parameters, because enrollment is, we'll need some guidance. You know, Eric asked, well, what's that number? You can tell us you want 10 extra students. Remember the year that Jeremy told us to go -10 students? Oh,
I would prefer on the student enrollment piece, because that to me is the most unpredictable thing. I would keep that as just say, that's neutral, let's just move, you know, what we feel like we're gonna, if we were gonna do any bopping around, you know, I would maybe do that with the state, you know, formula, because I do think there's more confidence that it's gonna be a, so we could do something like that, so we kind of got started. Or we just take, like I said, the whole idea that we're gonna go with this, you know, 1.5, stay conservative, and we can add late in the game. There are some things that we may take a look at adding even before that, and they do fall under the realm. We do have some somewhat really important special ed issues that are gonna need to be addressed, that might have some needs that we need to add. And, as you know, we do get some reimbursement for that, so if we add, let's say you add a $80,000 total package teacher, and you get 50% reimbursement. So it's a little less expensive. But we do have some real issues and those are in the areas that if we don't have appropriate staffing, my fear is that we actually will lose families. Because, it's happening all around us, it's happened here, and it's happened with the different, challenging needs that we're seeing from our 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds. And they're just kind of the meltdowns that we're seeing. If students having a meltdown, this is gonna be chucked at your head, right? And it happens. And if you got moms and dads of all the other boys and girls in that class, and they don't feel like their child is safe from school, they're gonna leave, and this whole building is gonna be full of parents ticked, and they're gonna be coming right to the board table, what are you gonna do to keep my kid? So, that's the piece where I do think that we're gonna probably have some. But like I said, we got a long list.
Not for me.
Yeah, not really, not really. Just because the middle school got all that they wanted a couple years ago.
Come on,
Middle school
Sabotage.
So you don't have any more needs.
You're losing enrollment.
We know.
Yeah, there's,
Yeah, that's true.
there's needs, the only thing that would be difficult, if we do say, okay, let's stay conservative, basically not in a position to add anything. And then if we did late in the game in May, think, okay, we have a little bit of dollars to do some things. I'm fine with that, except the only problem is that some of these positions we're talking about are real hard to find jobs, hard to find people. Spend a little, that kind of thing. You can't, like an active calendar, so you get somebody to apply for those jobs nowadays. So that's where we'd be put behind the eight ball. But in terms of the parameters, I would state enrollment plan. I think that's where we gotta be. We wanted to do a 2% versus 1.5 or something. I do think that we probably are very somewhat, we're kind of planned for the negotiations too, and that's a big, every penny that we're given on negotiations is excited for. So what are you looking for? Are you asking the board to kind of say, what are the parameters so that you can run these simulations, and then you bring the simulation back to the board and say, okay, board, these are the parameters, I typed it into the what if. That's what I call it, and then you went in, we have the gym sheet model.
We do big picture.
Yep.
Parameters, and we look at balance and.
So then she would come back and say, this is where we're at. And then.
Can you do two? Can you do one
A lot of times
really
we do 3 or
conservative
4.
and have a little bit more?
More than that.
Yeah,
How about doing two?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
So, so Ben went straight into, state increases to formula. I was listening to the governor before the meeting here, and Ben said he was asking for 3 and 2. I don't think we'll get 3. It's very possible we'll get 2. We have gotten to last. What, makes me a little more interested is the Tails piece. They're talking about special education. And trying to reduce that cost subsidy for all districts.
Can you explain what
It's not basic formula. So when you look at what I,
There's these things that are listed.
yeah, these are the things like I call them tails. They're categorical aid.
Could be school safety, it could be special ed, it could be a variety of things, but they have to go specifically.
Tails can help, as I call them. Tails help tremendously. If we go back to, 14, 15, when local equity revenue came on, that piece, that was a large amount of money. We only got 1.5 on the formula, but all said and done, the levy, boom, that levy brings in over $1 million. And we did have a levy, so it only brought in part of that for us, but that was it. Very nice. We also brought in all day, every day, K fully funded back in 14, 15. That was a very nice piece. The new special education formula so far has been really good to us. But as I explained in January, we're on the right side of that formula with enrollment growth. That helps move our cap, how much we can collect. And last year, we were basically right on that cap. We didn't lose, we didn't gain, but we were right there with what we could actually bring in. So is 2%, if we're looking at just a percentage amount, 2%, it might be a reasonable amount to think about this year, because if they're seriously going to look at SPED, if they're seriously going to put some money on Safe Schools, then that gives you some ability to say, yeah, it's gonna be at least a full 2%. Special ed money, it doesn't matter to us, it's still revenue.
Well, if we do the parameters, I guess I'd like to have a somewhat of a middle ground. If we go however many things we're gonna set parameters for, if there's 4 of them, if we set 3 more conservative and we do 1 that's a little less conservative, that would be a little bit easier for us to plan for. Because we could, if we want to be real conservative, we could say, well, 0% increase for the state, because we don't know yet. And then we'd be sitting here saying, what are we cutting next year? Pink flipping. So, if I'm hearing right, stable enrollment, you got some numbers in there for different negotiations. And then the state piece would be the parameter. And you said you could potentially be comfortable with the 2%?
Well, Governor Walz talks really, really good. So
Yeah.
the question is, can it be delivered? That piece I don't know, because there's a 20-cent gas tax that came out of the result of that. So there's gonna be some conversation, but it is very, I think overall it's a positive conversation coming out of the legislature, MREA.
Well, if there's every year for us to be optimistic, it would be this year, but we all know how public. The one group would probably come in at 0, just to play hardball.
So yeah, that's right, we haven't seen what the Senate's gonna do, and how, they've all gotta put their proposals and term side by side. the thing is, we do need to start planning for next year, and we won't have all that information, so that's why we're asking for some guidance. That you're comfortable with what we're doing. So, the next sheet is class size guidelines. This is the same, that has not changed. And I think our administration is pretty comfortable with our class size guidelines for the most part, with some tweaks for certain classes, which I think they do right now to some extent.
And I'll just reiterate, the place that there's the most variability in the high school, obviously, is the how they schedule. We will sit in with the high school, when they're making recommendations on courses and offer. And, so for us to have comprehensive offerings at the high school, you will likely see some classes we offer that are below that 25. Might have a handful, might be 15, might be 50, whatever. I guess we're gonna have to wait and see how that shakes out. There very well could be a class in there or two that are at 31 or 32. And, but we're gonna use that 25 to 30 as the guideline. But I think it's really important that we have lots of offerings for our students, and we need to offer some of those 15ers.
And then we put negotiation history here in Princeton. We will, next time, since it's our shorter meeting, go into closed session to talk about parameters for, negotiations. And that'll, we'll have some numbers ran with some parameters in them so that you have an idea of what that might look like. But we have not settled, we've been basically at 8% or higher. And again, we have not only settled, but we have also done some extra things where we have added things on like the extracurricular, which we didn't really cost because we were so out of the realm of the area as far as competitiveness in that area that we kind of worked with our union to move that forward a little bit faster without costing against the package, knowing full well that we were adding it to the budget. That's the key piece. You have to know that when again, this is tails beyond just your basic what's on the salary schedule and then health insurance. Those things do cost money, and we had to just be aware that if we end up doing something with that, what is it going to do to the bottom line of the budget? So last time around, we settled at over 9%. We had one additional thing, which was putting a little bit extra money on those outer MA 15, 30 years. Just to pump up those lanes that the union felt was needed. And that was not costed. We ran those numbers just here. So I think it was about 17,000 in a $36 million budget. Doesn't even make a flip. So we just wanted to be aware of where we're at. We'll have this discussion in closed session because we don't want to, even though when we go in now, we don't really, I don't know where we're going to be at because we want to be done. So we will be. Yes, we will be asking, so if you have any questions, please ask Ben, and we'll get answers back to you. If you need, but I will tell you, Emily did come in my office the other day. I don't know if you read the front page of the Union Times, or it's a Malaco 1.6 million cuts. And she comes running in, At least they didn't get our name wrong.
Oh, gosh,
Because
yes.
they switch our schools all the time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I looked at her and I said, I'm really glad too, because that, I don't like to look at it as though we're cutting, we're doing adjustments, we're adjusting for class size, we're adjusting for the programs that aren't running at max capacities, there's less interest. We do our best to keep as much of our staff here and as many of our programs as we possibly can. We are in a good position. We don't need the zero-based budget. Knock on wood, that we ever have to get to. But hopefully we have plenty of one. And the last 2 years, the number has not gone up. It has gone the other way from our adopted, gotten better. Action has gotten better at 651,000. I would say that we're gonna roll probably positive. We monitor every month when it ends. I have to wait till the journal entries are all posted on March 1st before I can really see what's happening. And right now, I'm actually anticipating that date because I wanna make sure it's still running in the right direction. So we watch those percentages pretty close. The initial revised budget that Jason and Ben reviewed with me was a little bit better than what this was tonight. We found a glitch, and that all comes from analyzing all of those thousands of data and then going back and analyzing large categories and looking at percentages. Are we running within where we were the prior 2 years or 3 years?
Michelle, what,
So at the end of this meeting, we have 2 weeks to think. And then at the first meeting in March, we will ask for a motion to approve an enrollment parameter. And I can last year what we did is we put some options down there, so board member can just pick from the option. The state percent would be the same thing. And class size guidelines, yes, for the boards would work on that also. And then negotiations will go in closed session, and then that just becomes a dollar amount.
for the board to look at and be prepared to make that decision on parameters, can you run the simulations? Before that, to say, okay, this is what.
They'll see the closed session, we haven't ran the simulation prior to the parameters.
Okay, so then, when the board
But
says, this is what we
finance-
like for
right.
parameters,
Finance will see all of it prior to the meeting. So they will lead the recommendation.
okay, so we'll have some simulations with the different options for the finance committee to review.
Mhm.
Over.
First reading policy is listed there. For school board member compensation and expense, you want strategic planning.
Policy. Okay, the reason you're seeing it again is, at the organizational meeting, there was a change suggested in compensation. We went to the policy committee and it meant split recommendation of finance. Finance looked at it, and the commission is finance, decided to stick with the original, not do any. So therefore, it had the original form as yeah, of course. So there is no increase.
Honestly, I'm not even, I know what this is. I didn't bring it with me, but you're aware that the board has, about 4 to 5 years ago, you did 5 strategic plan goals, you call it, right? I think like college and career ready and personalized learning, that kind of thing. I think digital. And, as you know, we've done quite a bit of work on trying to do an organizational structure, get ourselves organized more efficiently and effectively with the work that. And we've really recognized that the work that we're doing in the 5 strategic